Well, welcome to the Transform Childhood Trauma Summit. We are here today with Bobby Parrish. She is the founder of the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaching, and she has a story for you. So I'm just so happy that she's here and joining us. And Bobby, why don't you tell us a little bit of how you got started into trauma coaching, but the life that you had to experience in order to get here?
Yes. Thank you so much, Jamie, for inviting me here and allowing me to share my story and a little bit about what I do. Yes. So I grew up in a family where there was a lot of abuse and there was a lot of trauma. My mother, in that day and age, there were only a couple of different things you could do. You could either be a housewife or you could be a teacher or a nurse. My mother tried going into the convent and that didn't work for her, so she left the convent. So she married my father, and she quickly learned that she didn't want to be married. She didn't like to be married. She didn't like having children. She turned to my father and she gave me to him and said, "Here, you take her. I don't want to have anything more to do with you. You take this child and you turn this child into whatever it is that you want." Mm. And so I grew up being abused by my father for 8 years. And I learned that from that experience, I learned that I wasn't worthy. I wasn't good enough. There was something wrong with me. And I grew up thinking I had to be perfect in order to be loved, with some pretty powerful inner critics who were telling me that I wasn't worthy. I wasn't able to be loved. There was something wrong with me at the very core of me. I was flawed. So I grew up and I struggled with my mental health. And I ended up bouncing in and out of 7 different psychiatric wards. I was homeless for a while, and just really struggled until I finally met a therapist who cared about me. And that was the first person in my life who ever loved me for being me. And it was transformative because that was the first time that I ever experienced what it was like to be loved unconditionally. And that was the turning point for me. That was the pivot point for me, was to experience this coach or this counselor who poured her heart and soul into wanting to be with me. And that transformed me. And so I was able to get my feet on the ground again. And I went to grad school, got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And so I did that for a couple of decades. And then in January of 2014, realized that counseling wouldn't allow me to be what I wanted to be with my clients. It had certain boundaries and ethics that didn't allow me to tell my clients that I loved them.
Mm.
And it didn't allow me to get the relationship that I wanted to with my clients that I had had with my therapist that was so pivotal for me. And so I retired from being a therapist and I became a trauma recovery coach. And I had a lot of people ask me, will you teach me how to do what you do? Because I love what you do. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 I can't do that. I can't do that, as one does.
Yeah. Well, that
And I
unworthiness is
finally
starting to come
decided,
back, right?
yes, exactly. So finally, I went, okay, I'll give it a shot. Let me just put an advertisement out and see how many people I might get interested. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll get four, maybe I'll get six. So I put an ad out on Facebook, and within 24 hours, I have 12.
Oh, wow.
And so I took the ad down and I went, I don't even have the curriculum written yet. So I wrote the curriculum, taught that first class of 12, and then we brought in another class and it was 40.
Oh, wow.
And the next class was 80. And the next class after that was 100. So we have been doing this now for 9 years. We have educated more than 1,000 coaches around the world. We have coaches on every continent except for Central America. We have them in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, in France, in Budapest. We have them in Canada, the United States, of course, is one of our most popular ones, in the Caribbean, in Kenya, in South Africa. And every year we have two classes a year, and we teach these trauma recovery coaching skills to people who, and 99.9% of them are survivors. They're survivors of childhood trauma, and they're coming in and learning this skill because they want to go out and teach people who are suffering like they suffered. And so it's this wonderful, wonderful honor to be able to teach people what I know and to be able to have them going out in the world and helping trauma survivors.
Right. Well, Bobby, a couple things is one, that's my whole life too right now. I'm not a
Yeah.
trauma coach, but I have coaches that work with me in the Rich and Purpose. My goal is to find people like you to give messages in summits like this so that people can get the help
Yes.
that they need. Because as you
Yes.
said, we once we've endured the trauma experience, we don't want anyone else to have to do it, right?
Exactly.
So that is how we think, well, how can I solve this problem for other people? And it's
Right.
even though we do it in different ways, it's a movement now. So I
Yes.
just want to ask you a question, Bobby. When you were going with the coach that you said unconditionally loved you, what
Yes.
what trait, or why do you think that particular coach, you think that a lot of coaches are like that, or did you just get lucky and found someone that unconditionally loved you? And then how did you feel that unconditional love, because it was something that you hadn't experienced before?
Right. Right. And I think I got lucky. I tried whole bunch of different therapists until I found this one. And so it took me a while to find her. But then what told me that she loved me unconditionally was that no matter how I presented, no matter whether I was angry during that session or whether I hated myself or whether I was passively suicidal, it didn't matter what I went through, she still was there. And she stood firm and she stood steady no matter what I went through, no matter how I behaved, no matter how much I hurt. She was there. And there wasn't anything that she said that I was going to scare her away or make her go away. And that was the unconditional love that I had never experienced before. You know, with my mother, it was, well, I might love you if only you're perfect at everything. You know, and with my father, it was, well, I'll love you as long as you do what I want you to do. And so here was this person who was the first person I'd ever met who said, I'm here for everything. I'm here for everything and I'm not going anywhere.
Did you did it take you a little bit of time to accept her love? since you hadn't really
Absolutely.
accepted it or and experienced it before? And then how long did that take? Did you think that you started feeling safe when you were giving her answers?
It took me a while because, like you said, I'd never experienced it before, and I needed to learn to trust it, that she didn't have an ulterior motive, that she wasn't just there because I was paying her. I would say it probably took me almost a full year
Wow.
of really being with her and having her experience everything until I really trusted that, in fact, she was going to do what she said, which was stay there and be there for me no matter what happened.
And so many times you know, we a lot of times we'll have siblings. Did you have a brother or sister that was,
I had a sister 18 months older than myself.
and even though we experience the same things, right? It's like we're two different people most of the time that we're
Yes,
experiencing the same thing, but we're taking it in different ways. And then
right.
you start to recover. And then how do you think is the best way that we can deal with our siblings? Because, sometimes you get pulled into the same old patterns that you were in before. And then, but we want to get out of it. So what is the best way you think that we can say, address our family and say, look, I'm moving on with my life into a different place that I
Right.
can live life and love it. And and how do we address those types of things?
Well, I think with honesty and I think with boundary setting, like my sister didn't choose to take up what happened when she was a child. She chose to bury it deep inside her and not to face it. And so she and I have come to a place where I've had to set boundaries with her because she still has the after effects of the behavior. And she judges me very harshly for everything that I went through, um, whereas she didn't go through that. And so I've had to say, I love you, but if you're going to judge me and you're going to be harsh towards me, then that isn't something that I'm going to be around for. So if we're going to have a relationship, I need it to be these things and I need it not to be these things. And so I love you unconditionally, but here are some boundaries that I need to follow. And so she and I manage, we do. I love her dearly. She's my older sister. I love her dearly, but I have had to be very clear about the boundaries, and I've had to step back a couple of times and say, I'm not going there with you. This isn't going to happen.
Right.
And she has adjusted, and we have moved on.
Well, good. That's good because
Yeah,
I guess kind of go over with the audience a little bit about boundaries, because I think the one thing that so many times we with childhood trauma go through is we have trouble setting boundaries. I mean, and
absolutely.
we become people pleasers, right? Oh, and all right,
Yes,
I'm going to help four people move today, right? And uh, I
yes.
I think that is kind of a hard thing that we position ourselves. I mean, I still struggle with it. So go over with our audience a little bit, Bobby, about how you set those boundaries and you actually kept them at a time when, especially with family. I think family is the hardest part that we can deal with.
Yes. Well, people think that boundaries are about other people and their behavior, but boundaries are actually about us. Boundaries are about what do we need for us to be happy and safe and healthy. So, with my sister, it was okay. So I'm not going to talk with you about what mom and dad did because you defend mom and dad. And I know what I went through with mom and dad. And so I'm not going to engage in that discussion with you because that's not good for me. It's not good for me. But I love you and I want to talk to you. I just have these boundaries about these subject areas that I don't want to broach with you. So when we set boundaries, it's important that we let people know that I'm setting this boundary for me. It's not because you're doing anything wrong, but it's because this is what I need for me in order to be healthy. And I love you and I want to have a relationship with you. And so these boundaries are here so that we can stay inside this lane and relate to each other and still be loving and kind towards each other.
Right. I think that as far as like the boundaries go, and living the life that we're trying to live, what do you feel
Yes.
was the biggest obstacle of your childhood that you had to overcome in order to reach the amazing results that you've done? What was that one thing that you remember and said, if once I did that, everything else kind of came into play?
I think it was that I thought that I deserved what happened to me. I thought that I was unworthy of being loved in any kind of a healthy way because there was something bad about me, something fatally flawed. Um, and it's interesting, Jamie, because of the last time I was in the psychiatric ward, that final psychiatric ward stay that I had, all the ones up until then, I had been treated like someone with depression who wasn't behaving well, right? I was suicidal. So if I would just stop being suicidal, I'd be a better person and they'd let me go home. But this last time I was in the hospital, I was treated as part of my treatment team. And they said to me, "What do you think that you need in order to feel better?" And that was the first time that I was treated as a valuable human being within the system. And so that was a powerful pivot point for me because I was able to say, "This is what I need." And they were able to say, "We agree. That's something that you need, and we're going to help you get that set up." And so that was very pivotal for me. And that in combination with this therapist who loved me and who guided me and who was there for me no matter what happened with me, those were the things that turned things around for me. I was never in the hospital again after that last hospital stay.
What
Um,
I
and
see,
it made all the difference.
yeah, well, that's good because what I see is love was the key
Yes.
to your movement. You
Yes.
had a therapist that loved you. Then you went to a psychiatric ward where the people there loved you, and then you learned to love yourself,
Yes.
and
From
you
them, I learned to
accepted
love
it,
myself.
right? And
Yes.
I think that that is what is amazing. And the one thing I think that we get into when we experience childhood trauma is just what you say, is that we don't feel that we're loved. We don't feel that we're able to go into life and accomplish a lot of the things that we want to accomplish. So that's
Yes.
what a lot of our audience, Bobby, are overachievers. We
Okay.
work and we've reached a certain level of goals in our life, but then all of a sudden we just get stuck. We don't know
Okay.
how to get to the next level. And sometimes I feel that that is due to relationships, right? The relationship that you
Yes.
have with your boss and the relationship that you have with the people that work with you, because in a sense our relationships were all messed up when we were kids. So
Right.
how do you have people help people address the relationships, because so many times people will say, I would like to ask my boss for a raise, but oh, he probably won't give it to me. And once you don't think he'll give it to you, right, it's kind of like that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
You're not
Right. Then he won't give it to you.
right. So how do you gain that confidence, I guess, to keep going to the next level and not stay stuck?
Yeah. I approach that in a very interesting way because I see that behavior of I want to ask for a raise, but I don't feel like I'm worthy, which is what they were taught as a child. You can't have that thing because you're not worthy. And if you ask for it, you'll just be told no. That's a protective statement. We're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to preempt reaching out for something that we want because there's part of us who believes we're not going to get it and we don't want to get hurt. So that voice that's telling you, you don't know how to ask for it, or if you ask for it, you're not going to get it, that's actually a protective voice. And so we ask that voice, what do you need to step aside? What can I give you? How can I help you in order for you to step aside so I can go ahead and ask for this thing that I really think that I deserve? And then we meet that need with ourselves. Maybe that protective part of us needs to hear that actually we believe that we're worthy. And I need to love that protective part of myself I need to accept that protective part of myself, not tell it to scram, not tell it to go away that it's bad, but let it know, hey, I love you and it's going to be okay. I'll ask. You don't have to ask. You can just sit by and watch, and I'll ask because I believe that we are worthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you have a like a another self,
You have parts of yourself,
right?
right? Like when we're growing up, it's like, oh, part of me wants Italian food for tonight, and part of me wants Chinese. Or, yeah, part of me wants to go to that party tonight, but part of me just wants to curl up on the sofa and watch Netflix with a blanket and some hot chocolate.
Right.
Um, so we have parts of ourselves that believe different things about ourselves and have different roles. Like that part of us that's the workaholic, like that part of us that maybe is perfectionist or a people pleaser. And we have to meet them where they are and let them know that they're loved, but that they can step aside and the inner wise Bobby can go ahead and do the thing and they don't have to worry about it. That's from internal family systems.
Okay. Well, that's a great way to put things. I mean, I think that that's another reason that people need to say they're worthy and reach out for help, because if
Yes.
you try to do that on your own and you haven't experienced it before and you don't ask for people to get help you get that to that point, then all of a sudden what happens is you don't, even if you do it, you don't have the confidence, and somehow you'll be triggered and end up back at the same place. And
Yes.
and that's the one thing I really want to impress with people who have experienced the childhood trauma, is that you do deserve to live the life, as you say, live the life that you want to love. And
Yes.
and so many people just go through life wishing they would do something, but they
Right.
really don't do it. And it's because
Right.
they don't feel that worthiness. What do you
Right.
think are the steps that you can take, Bobby, that helps you become worthy? I know sometimes, it's compliments and that type of thing, but the things that you do that kind of make you say, okay, I'm working on my worthiness. Maybe I'm not here yet, but I'm gradually working on it. What are the steps you would recommend for that?
I would recommend that they put together some kind of a piece of paper or a journal or something where they track other people's compliments
Mm.
of them or track successes that are proof of the fact that they are worthy. I teach all these classes and I have these coaches are all around the world, and yet I still track the compliments and I still track the evidence of the fact that I am worthy. And I also want to acknowledge that part of myself and where I learned that from, where I learned that I'm not worthy. So I can see that it's something that I've learned. It's not something that's truly who I am. It wasn't there before I learned it. And I learned it because someone taught it to me. And I believed it because I needed to in order to survive. Feeling unworthy is a survival strategy.
Right.
And so it's learning to look at it that way. It really changes the perspective.
Yeah, I think that, you know, love to me is the key. Loving yourself, loving other people. How did
Yes.
have you forgiven your father and your mother, and in your mind, and how did that make you feel, and what was the process you used for that?
I did. I didn't forgive them in person because both of them didn't make any changes in their behavior, but I forgave them inside my mind. And that helped me to just let it go, to just let it go.
Right.
Um, and to love myself and to realize that my parents were acting out what happened to them when they were children. They were just repeating the cycle. And that somewhere inside them, in some way, somehow they loved me. And so I forgave them because I needed to forgive them in order to move on in my journey. And they have to take responsibility for whatever it is happened for them and then whatever in fact they chose to do to me. And they've both passed on now, but before they passed on, I did forgive them both. And it was very helpful for me, and realized that on some level they did love me the best way that they knew how to love me, given what they grew up in. But I needed to forgive them because that was helping me.
Right. I mean, it says that, forgiveness is the key. If you don't forgive and you retain the anger that you have,
Yes,
do you really ever fully get to a recovery point where you can live that life that you love? If people
yes,
just stay angry, right? And I know that people do that. I mean, even sometimes with me now, there will be things that trigger me to think that, okay, I just don't like that person. When in the end, right, we're supposed to be, especially people like us that are helping people, we're supposed to love in all situations. And so
yes.
those little triggers that bring anger into you, how do you think that we should deal with that? Because so many times, we talk to ourselves, oh, I just don't like that, and oh,
Yes.
that happened and that happened. And then you find out, or you almost get more angry when you're trying to put it to ease. So how do you recommend for people to do that?
I'll go back to, and I remind people that anger is a protective mechanism. Again, we're going back to the protection, but
Right,
anger is meant to protect.
right,
Anger is meant to keep our distance, or to keep someone else at a distance and not hurt us. Um, so if I once I remind myself of that, then I can go, oh, okay. Well, actually, I don't need protecting right now. I'm strong enough. I can stand up for this, and I don't need to be angry. But what I need to do is to look underneath the anger and figure out what it's protecting. Anger is also what we call a secondary emotion, which means that it covers up another emotion. And more often or not, that's being hurt. So someone hurts me, and because I don't want to admit that I'm hurt, I get angry. And so once I recognize what it is that's underneath it, oh, okay. So that person said something that was very hurtful to me, and my response was anger. But now I understand what it is, I can tend to myself and that part of myself that was hurt by what they said. And I don't need the anger around to protect me.
and sometimes I think that we can get angry because we're not living the life that we want to live. We don't
Absolutely.
we don't ask for that raise, and we accept it, or we don't do some things. And then
Right.
what happens, I think, sometimes, Bobby, is all of a sudden, you become that social drinker at home where every night you have
Yes.
2 or 3 drinks and watch a little
Right.
TV, and you get up and do your life all over again. How
Right.
do how can you help people break that pattern? Because I think it's just one of those things that, time goes by so fast, right? And all of a sudden
Yes.
you've wanted something for 3 or 4 years, and now you've been drinking a couple of drinks a day, and or those types of binge drinking maybe every now and then, and you need help. How do you get people to say, I need the help? And then you get a coach like yourself to walk them through the steps they need to be the person that they're trying to be.
Well, first of all, as a coach, I'd be that safe person that they're able to come to and say, hey, this is happening for me. And I'm like, okay, we can deal with that. Let's get to work. You want to get to work? Absolutely. I want to get to work. I want to figure out what this is. And so you find someone who you feel safe talking to, and then you recognize it. And what I do with people who are engaged in a behavior that helps them to numb their pain, whether that's alcohol, whether that's workaholism, whether that's being addicted to working out, whatever that is, we deal with the hurt that's underneath it first. And then once we've dealt with the trauma that's underneath it, the trauma that they're trying to cover up when they're drinking for those, reaching for those drinks, then we deal with the addictive behavior, and we can help them to recover from that addictive behavior. But you have to deal with what's prompting it up front, because if you do it the other way around, you're just asking for them to relapse. You're
Yeah.
just asking for them to continue in the addictive behavior. You have to deal with the trauma that's underneath it first, and then you deal with the addictive behavior. Um, but all of us who are engaged in any kind of addictive behavior, I think personally and professionally, that 99% of that time there's something traumatic underneath it
Right.
that they're trying to numb or defend themselves from.
And I think that is something that, you know, we used to think that it wasn't the trauma that caused us to drink, but what is it?
Right.
Gourmate, I think, is the one I hear all the time saying that
Yes.
basically you are an addict not because of something that is wrong with you, it's because of something
Right.
that you're trying to cover up and you're trying to escape from.
Yes, exactly. Yes, The Realm of the Hungry Ghost is
Right.
his book that talks about that.
Yeah. And I think well, I want to ask you one more question, and then it's a kind of an important question because so many people don't or don't realize that they've had childhood trauma. I mean, I
Yes.
almost didn't put, you know, a transformed childhood trauma summit because I was concerned that sometimes people will say, "Oh, I wasn't traumatized in my childhood," even though
Right.
they were. How do you get people to kind of accept that what they went through wasn't love, it was trauma?
Yes. Yes. So I talk about the definition of trauma, which is too much too soon, too much for too long, or too little for too long. Because neglect is as much childhood trauma as something that was too much too fast. Say, for instance, you were in a car accident. That's too much too fast. Or say, for instance, I work with a group of people who found out that their mother was not their mother or their father was not their father when they take some of those ancestry DNA tests. And finding that out is too much too soon. Or if it's bullying or demeaning behavior from one of your parents, it's too much for too long. And so, what I help them to understand is it doesn't have to mean you don't have to be hit. You don't have to be sexually assaulted to experience childhood trauma. It can be neglect. It can be being bullied by one of your parents. It can be demeaning. It can be denigrating by one of your parents. All of those. It can be being bullied by a sibling. All of those are forms of trauma. And we talk about what that means and how that has impacted them and the messages that they learned because of their trauma. And then most of them can see it once we go through it that way.
And then just one more, like the to ex to keep going and to experience, you know, like you have overcame a lot
Yes.
and you know, you ended up getting your doctorate, you wrote, you know, the courses for the coaching that you do.
Yep.
What made you not give up and just go to living the life that was easy, right? You could not get all the way through your trauma and live a good life, but you dug down deep and did great things. How do you think that people who you know, I'm just living this life, and so many times, you know, we get around people that say, keep living the life that you're living, right? And so you're, you know, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you where you're going to be in 5 years. Um, how do you, how did you, I guess, how do we get people to dig down deep and think that they're worthy to have the life that they know that they want, but through relationships and through the things that they've experienced, just don't take the next step? How do you encourage people to take that next step?
Help them to deal with that lack of unworthiness because we have to deal with that because that's what's driving the bus at this particular point. They have the desire, they have the wish, but they don't believe that they're worthy. So we have to tackle that and we have to get into the realm of self compassion. I always say to people, let's try an experiment. Are you willing to try an experiment? Try an experiment with me about let's do some radical self compassion exercises and let's see if that will help because one thing that rewires the brain, Jamie, better than almost anything else, is compassion. Compassion will literally rewire your brain, that lovely neuroplasticity that's out there in the brain. It will rewire the brain. And those beliefs of being unworthy can actually be rewired into being self compassion. So I'll work in the realm of self compassion with people like that so they can rewire their brain. And then they're like, you know what? Even though I'm not 100% certain that I can do it, I'm willing to give it a shot because I want that thing so badly. And I believe that I can have it. Let's do it. And then I walk with them side by side and I be that coach to myself, the coach to them that I had someone be to me, and let them know that I'm here for it. I'm here for it all, the misses and the hits that are on target. Let's go. I'm right there with you.
Well, and I think if we have a little bit of a theme here, it's that you need to do the work, right?
Yes,
You can't just hope that your life is going to change, especially when you've had years of childhood trauma and things happen in your
yes.
life. And so I'm just going to ask you, Bobby, tell people how they can get a hold of you so that they can have the help that they want. Because the one thing Zig Ziglar used to say, you don't climb the high mountains by yourself. It's working with
Right.
others that you get to do the things that you want to do. So
You
tell
bet.
them how they can get a hold of you. We'll put it on the screen, and so we can all start living the transformed life and live the life that we love. Everyone can do that.
You bet. So I'm at Bobby Parrish at IAOTRC.com. That's IAOTRC.com. And it's International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaching. So it's just the first letter of each one of those words.com. You can reach out to me and I'll be there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Bobby. I mean, I know that I got a lot out of this conversation, and I hope our audience did as well. And we'll be
Thank you,
talking to
Jamie.
you again real soon. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.